Proud to announce this video is sponsored by EA. Hey everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a comprehensive guide of how to utilize Loba's ult effectively on Apex Legends. In today's guide we're going to be utilizing Storm Point, and we're going to talk about her ultimate in terms of placement and other utility that is very beneficial utilizing the map and positioning. Now I've started a stopwatch because this varies depending on where you land in terms of when your ultimate is going to come up. What you should do is make sure that you loot every bit of area before you push anywhere. And don't rely on your ultimate at the very start, even though it does come up very quickly. So when we landed, it was around 55%. The percentage changes depending on how far away or close that you do land. So you should go through every bit of loot rotation over here. Be very secure in what you want to loot. You know, in this scenario, you know, change weapons if you need to, but once you got your loadout, let's say if I was going to stick with the Rampage and the Volt, I would replace the Rampage with something more comfortable for me, maybe like a sniper or maybe like a wingman, but otherwise I know what my loadout is going to be. You should do that as quickly as possible because this is going to help you in terms of where you put your loadout. As well as the beauty with Loba, at least you know where to run for mags or anything. So in this scenario, I'll hold on to this mag and make sure that I utilize that for a light gun if I run into, let's say, an R301. So what you have seen already, the ult just came up, so that's about a minute in once we land around 55%, looking at my stopwatch and timer. Now there's two things that you can do in this scenario. And option one is you can drop the ult. So if we have it here on the screen, you can see from the upper left hand corner that I still have this loot table over here on the far left. Let's say that there is a team on this section over here. What you could do for option one is place it in a safe area and then loot the area, right? Because at least you're getting the south side of the map over here. When you're putting your Loba ult, you want to get as much as buildings or various objects and geometry as much as possible because it's going to increase your probability for loot. That's tip number one. If nobody is here, well, the best thing you can do is you can throw yourself over here, and when we pull up the ultimate again, you're going to see how many buildings that we can grab. Look at that. So we've already looted that building on the upper left, but now we have all this building and structure on the far right. Of course, you're going to want to make sure you have cover, put it in a safe area, and there's a sniper there, but I have a R301, and there you go. Now you have so much more loot at your disposal that you can grab that's going to be way more beneficial. And I noticed that a lot of people tend to make this mistake pretty early on when utilizing the Loba ult, because then now it's going to be up very, very quickly. So a round usually lasts, and I'm going to keep using it pretty much on cooldown and as we bake tips and tricks as the zone continues to close on how to continuously utilize the Loba ult. Because the thing is, you can loot around this area, and anything that is in the Loba ult in here, let's say there's a purple item, let's say a Phoenix kit. We know that the Phoenix kit was within range, and we can see it right there. Anything purple, sometimes you don't necessarily have to loot. And if you're using a sniper, you can usually see all those objects from a distance, which is why I wanted to grab a sniper. This is why it's really good to pair Loba's ult with a sniper rifle. Didn't do in this example, but in the next example here, I will definitely pull up a 6x magnification. So when you see these various objects, they are within the radius. So be sure to keep that in mind whenever you're looting and making decisions in terms of your loot, because your passive and your ultimate share the same radius. And there's that sniper scope that we're talking about. So we can look around the area, and then we're going to look for it and grab it. And then when you zoom in, you should be able to see it. I think it may be down there. And we'll cut away, and we'll talk about when to drop the Loba ult again. So like we mentioned, it was actually in that package there. And you can tell, once you get better with Loba, you can definitely tell from the shapes on where this stuff is at. And you can see, boom, there's the extended energy mag there. That's probably where the dual shell is at. Or it could possibly be this one over here. Well, there it is, so you can see it there. So then always go for some of the blue tier loot first, and then kind of work your way. And now we have the Loba ult back up again. So the best spot, which we have not looted, if you're taking your time looting the extended area, if there's still things that you need, you can definitely queue and push over there. So we're going to do that here in the next second. Now, in the initial tips that we provided was definitely covering more optimization in terms of making sure you're grabbing all the loot. So if we put this in the center right here, there's upsides and downsides. Remember that every time you put your Loba ult, that it really pings whether a team is in the area or not. And that's probably the scariest thing to do. So if I put this right here in the open, well, yes, this is the optimal spot because it's looting the whole area. So looting that building, this building, and that building. But the downside is I'm literally quite honestly in the center. And that's pretty scary. So you could definitely do this better by going inside the building. And you could still probably reach all the way over there by using this building right here. And just playing a little bit smarter, making sure that you hit all the buildings. There we go. Maybe put it in this angle right here. And you still have the radius. So it's important to do that because this ultimate is, as you can see, very large in terms of its proximity and pinging other players. So now we have the whole area here in terms of loot, and then we can move on. Don't forget to close your ultimate. I tend to make this mistake, and the reason I make this mistake is I tend to W key pretty hard. So those that watch my stream, my teammates will keep looting, and then I will pretty much be gone already, wanting to push the next objective. But ideally, in the perfect world, you want to close this. Okay, I decided to cut away because I wanted to show more of barometer and taking loot from different various heights. So we're going to loot up barometer and talk about Loba placement in the more south side of the map. Just to recap on the prior zone, when we were on checkpoint prior, you definitely saw where we were able to loot the north side of the map and get everything we personally needed, as well as the south side of that area. Meaning this whole area from our perspective was pretty much looted outside of needing, let's say, cells and ammo, batteries, anything of that nature, which can definitely be looted on the way rather than trying to get the gear that you need specifically. This is where the strength of Loba comes in for early game, making sure that you get all the loot that you exactly need, which is definitely a big strength. So when you drop again, make sure you go through your normal loot table. So this wasn't around 55%, so this is probably going to be about a 50 seconds. Sorry, a minute and 10 seconds, more or less, actually, until the ult does pop. So at this point, what you can do is make sure that you grab all the loot that you need, and then we're going to drop it more towards the center and probably hit as much of these buildings as humanly possible. Now, there's also things to keep in mind for and to make sure that you're accounting for, is to make sure if you see an enemy team over there to assume that they've already looted as much as possible. Unless you just saw them land and you have your ultimate, you can definitely try to starve them out by grabbing whatever is remaining in that specific area. So in a moment, I'm going to have the ultimate, and then we're going to cut away and talk about placement of the ult. Okay, so I have some range weapons to grab here. So again, always make sure that you identify which scenario you're going to run with. If nobody has looted this area, if you drop your ultimate, it's definitely going to be a call to action of where you are currently. So you need to be very quick whenever you're looting up. Otherwise, you're going to call to action of where an enemy team should push you. If there is a team here, you can use your ultimate to continue to starve out the enemy or grab any precious loot that might be there, such as a purple armor. You can see those purple armors, especially this early on. So if we're talking about placement, we want to make sure we grab, because there's a few bins on the far end, and if you take a look with your scope, there's the purple right there, so you definitely don't necessarily need to grab that per se. We could probably move up a little further and just encompass all of these buildings here, because you can mostly see the loot that's there on the loot table, right? So you want to make a judgment call. If you can grab that, but you don't want to necessarily run out in the open over here, then you can place this in more of a strategic spot here, and we can go grab those other items over there. That's going to be the ideal world. So let's take a look to see what's in this area. We don't need to necessarily backpack. Maybe we're just on the search for batteries and maybe the mag. And then we're going to come right over here and grab that purple armor and purple bag. And then boom, you're pretty much done in this area. I mean, look at us. We're literally pretty kitted at this point, and it's only been, you know, the first zone is not even close to being done yet. So you grab that purple bag right over here. You can maybe go back, grab some of that ammo if you need it. At this point, I don't think we're necessarily going to need it. And we're going to grab that purple armor. Of course, you can ping this all for your teammates to let them know what's going on, what loot to grab. But again, for your own personal usage and what you're grabbing, this is how fast Loba can be in looting up at the very start of the round. And make sure to ping for your teammates where stuff is located, especially if there's other armors or anything in the vicinity and area. And pretty much with barometer, you are done and ready to go. And there's no harm if there's loot in the area if the team is taking a lot longer. Well, then you can perch up and look for that team that is about to third party you. Right? Because if you put down that ultimate, and let's say there was a team rotating up from Shipfall or from Cave, they're going to be rotating and probably see that big ultimate that you just threw out. So just be mindful and cover your teammates, and always make that informed decision if you're going to drop the ultimate or not. The biggest thing is to drop it. Always go for the drop, and your team is going to be ready because you're going to be more kitted. Remember that. If you're using your ultimate effectively and everyone's looting effectively, you want to go for these early fights. If this was ranked, you definitely want to go for these early fights. There's no harm in letting them know where your position is if you're constantly scouting and putting out information and communicating with your squad. If you cannot communicate with your squad, then perhaps hold the ultimate until it seems like your team is confident. But remember, use your gear advantage for early on. That's the biggest tip I can provide as well to you, is make sure you utilize your gear early on that you have and your advantage that you do have temporarily, because you're going to only hold that for a little while. And then as we were talking, boom, another ultimate is up. So what you could do one of two things. You can put it down towards the south side, and if there was something really, really nice in here, you can drop another one. In this scenario, let's just say that we possibly had a team pushing us, and we're going to use it to block the door. This is another tip to utilize. I'm going to go on the other side. Let's see if just pretend a team was going to push. It's going to buy you a little time, so then you can run away. But essentially, a team is unable to get to the store. This is another major tip when utilizing your ultimate. I'm going to give you some other tips as well, to the point where they have to push. And by the time they come through, it's like a person being in the way. Sometimes I've seen enemy teams just start looting and then just giving you even more time to run away. Yeah, of course, they're getting that gear, which is unfortunate. But you know what? It's not bad if it means that you're getting away to be able to reposition. And of course, you know, manage your inventory, and you kind of go from there. So now we're going to rotate further in, and we're going to talk about scenarios if the zone is going to close in specific areas. Now, let's highlight another example on this map. And the reason why I'm doing Storm Point over World's Edge is that Storm Point loot is very spread out on this map specifically. There's a lot of loot, but it's definitely spread out and takes some getting used to, which is why I'm utilizing this. Sometimes, let's say there's a million teams pushing in the center, right? Now, what you could do is loot up a side building, so then you grab some loot and immediately push over. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab some of that loot. And again, we're on 55% in terms of the ultimate, which means it should come up at around 55 seconds to a minute, kind of give or take, depending on that. Just so we can zoom in on loot, I'm just pulling out snipers, just for today's example. So now we're at 66%, but make sure to keep looting as much as possible. And if there was a team fighting over there, you would definitely hear them on the far right getting into the engagement. If they're not, well then remember the scenario and the options that you do have. Let's say you're done looting this area. If you hit all the bins, you pretty much did. I only missed the some of the stuff on the corner over there. But you can pretty much fly to the center. And remember, this is the Loba ult hits anything that's in terms of verticality going up and down, right? If they're in the center over here, you could loot these bins, and if they're fighting inside, you have two options. You have two options at this point. You can run in and fight, right? That is option one. Let's say your teammates aren't here yet, or you can just sit on height for a second and just kind of scout out and find your angles. Now, the minute that you do throw down your ult, it is going to call to action that there is a team right up above. But if you loot quickly, you could definitely grab whatever remaining gear there is, and let's say you're definitely starved for loot. You didn't get exactly what you wanted, where you can grab what you need and go right in, and then you're pretty much going to be able to fight at your full capacity, right? And you saw all the area loot in the area, you could ping it out and then go into the engagement. So what we're going to also do in this lobby is I'm going to highlight how many times you can drop the Loba ult at the end. So this is count number 1, and we're going to keep doing this, and we're going to give tips as the zone closes at this point and advice. So this area has been completely looted from what we need. We have a wingman, we have an R301, we could definitely do better in terms of our loot overall, but we have bats, we have cells. You are pretty much ready in terms of endgame outside of damage, so the only thing you really want to do is just get into a fight. In terms of inventory management, you really don't need more than 60. I'm holding a lot of light because, well, it's kind of what happens when you're playing Loba. You just have an extensive amounts of ammo. So now let's just rotate. We're at 45%, and I'm just going to keep the footage rolling, and I'm going to do jump cuts. And we're going to talk about every time I drop the Loba ult and how you can keep rotating and get as much loot as humanly possible. So we just did. We hit all the bins over here for the most part, and now we have 2% until the ultimate. If nobody had looted this area, this is now ultimate number 2. There's not the most amount of loot here, but again, it's going to rotate and your loot is going to come right back up in a moment, and you could speed this up by grabbing an ultimate accelerant. For this example, for right now, I'm not going to run an accelerant just because I want to showcase without any accelerants how much loot that you can grab. Did I just drop that battery? I think I did. If not, just go pick it up in the ultimate, even though it's right here. It's fine. Now, as we enter Cascade, let's pretend that for some reason all these areas are unlooted. You would still continue to loot and grab as much loot as humanly possible, and you definitely saw an ult acceleration, but again, for this example, I'm going to run it without it, just to highlight how many times we can pull down her ultimate and drop it in the area. We're looking at our inventory. It's good to know what you need ahead of time. So if we look at our inventory, we don't need any light ammo. We have an enormous amount of batteries. We could definitely use some grenades. We could drop some light for grenades if we need to. And we could utilize a hollow, a boosted loader, and just upgrades for the R301. That's really pretty much all that we need. So we're going to loot the north side, and when you're looting, try to loot in more of a pattern so that when you throw down the ultimate, you're still garnering as much space as possible. So then you still have the buildings more or less here on the south side, and there's definitely some loot that you can possibly grab on the other edge, depending on how far we can reach. So if we keep going, we're at 97%. So let's try to position at this point the best possible spot. Now I'm going to stop reminding in terms of reminder of dropping down the ultimate consistently. But if we already hit those buildings, let's try to place it. I don't think we're not going to be able to hit the buildings all the way over there from the map, because we've already hit these, but we haven't hit that. This is probably the best placement that we're going to get. You could probably put it inside to play a little safer. But if there was any death boxes, the Loba ult's another great way to grab whatever you need. So realistically, all we need is that barrel stabilizer. We could definitely use a hollow, and then we move on. We close it, we're out. Let's go. Now another tip as you're rotating and you're seeing the number still increase and we're trying to find optimal positioning. As you're finding optimal positioning, you know, going to the center of the zone or going for a fight at this point with how kitted and looted I am is definitely going to be your ideal choice. Another tip I can definitely provide to you is if a team already knows where you're at, there is no harm in dropping your ultimate if you have it. So let's say we ran up on Cascade Falls, but we saw a team fighting, right? We saw a team already engaged and we decided to go in on that encounter. If we decided to, and they were already cleaning up, and we only had a blue armor, the likelihood of them having a purple is actually relatively high. So in that point, we can drop the ultimate if the team knows you're there. Now, if you're going for a surprise attack, then do not drop the ultimate. Or you can have the option to let them know that you're there, grab the armor, then make a push in. Now, as we approach this building, you could definitely use your Q to get to this area and loot faster. But your ult or your tactical should be utilized to get out. So that's going to be the biggest tip I can also provide to you guys is use your tactical to get in and out of positioning. So this is a decent spot. You know, I know I'm definitely placing more or less out in the open. If a safer spot would be, you know, placing it here in the center or behind a wall, that would be more ideal. And I'm going to put the number of times I'm placing this Loba ultimate in this round. This is only zone 1, but I'm going to place it the overlay on screen so you don't have to hear me say over and over again, placing my Loba ult down number X, Y, and Z. And of course, don't forget to close your Loba ult. Already started running without it. That's just a bad habit from playing pubs. Don't develop bad habits like me. Let's say you were playing ranked in this scenario. In this example, it would be very, very important to highlight how just taking positioning and anchoring is very important. So if we needed to take height and we just needed to get some damage in and we saw a team rotating or anything of that nature, then just make sure to kind of hold out. We have the center of zone. If you hear shots, you can definitely go push out if your team is that confident, you're that looted and that kitted. And let's say there's only, let's say like 3 squads or 4 squads remaining. Well, if you heard those shots, you definitely should go in on that and kind of gate them out if they're on the, let's say they're fighting on the cave side over here. Well, kind of encroaching on that area to take that hill, to take positioning, might be a good idea, especially if they have to run up to you. Not a bad play if there's only like 3 or 4 squads. Let's say there's like 13 squads, then it's definitely way more beneficial to wait. Otherwise, you're going to end up in third-party city, even if you heard shots that come from a distance. So if my Loba ult came out, there would be the question, what would be the point of placing it down? Well, there might be some extra items that you could grab in there, and also just to kind of refresh, but you can also use it as extended cover as well. So I'm going to highlight that in a second. Let's say you're anchoring a building, and the Loba ult has just come up, and you wanted to kind of do some peeking, but you're having a hard time doing some peeking overall, but nobody needs the Loba ult. Let's say you don't need it whatsoever. Let's go and drop it. You can use it as a bit of cover and distraction from enemy teams. If you don't need anything in here, which you realistically don't, I mean, there's 5 bats, and what you could do at the end game, there's 2 things I'm going to teach here. Number 1, you can use it as cover, so when you're fighting up there, I've done this with the Watson ult, so you can kind of go behind it and do some peak damage. So it does get hit, so they have to make a decision. Most of the time, they'll start shooting this out, and if you got range, at least you can get some peeking in and some damage. It really only works in like low tier ranked, and it works in pubs, but at a high tier level, I highly doubt anybody's going to shoot this out. But I've seen some stranger plays at a very high tier level. Just some little advice. Another thing you can do, just remember what armor you dropped on the ground. If there was another armor, have your friend, let's see, where's that armor at? Hopefully it doesn't, sometimes the Loba ult tends to pick up the one that's closest nearby. So if I grab this, let's see which one it grabs that one. That's unfortunate. So make sure that you can drop multiple armors on the ground if you have a teammate who's able to drop it and grab it, because the Loba ult tends to grab what's nearest by. So you can grab extra armor, extra loot, and then drop them within the building. It's easier whenever it's not the same colored armor. Let's say if it was a white, a purple, or any other color. It's unfortunate that it's the blue one because it's only going to grab the one that's closest nearby. But at least you have that option to grab additional resources at your disposal. So let's say you want to starve out the enemy team. Sometimes it might be good just to grab all the ammo you can from the area. Or even starve them out if you know there's only a bit of shotgun ammo in the area, but you're not even using it. That's perfectly fine. You may need to drop more in your inventory to kind of grab it out, but if there's nothing else to do right now, well, there's no harm in just grabbing everything. You know, so you got all the remaining shotgun, you got all the remaining sniper. Even if you're not using a sniper, just starve them out. I've seen this done at a competitive level as well. This happened recently from a tournament I was watching, on just how much you can grab within the area if there's really nothing to do. If there's nothing at all to do, you can just grab it and just steal whatever, because at that point, if they don't have the ammo, they're not using it. So let's say you're still holding and you needed to rotate. The zone is closing. You have one or two things. You can drop the Loba ult now, or you can wait to hold it. Let's say we wanted to just drop the Loba ult to grab a few more resources and drop them on the ground, right? And then we rotate. Let's say you wanted to grab more of the batteries, right? Just to starve out enemies, you know? All of that's going to be better. Just drop it for all your teammates and have it all in here. Pretty much stockpile. That's a tactic you can do. And then if you're still in zone, well, that's the beauty of it. You're still in zone. If you want to rotate, you can definitely rotate. So now we're in zone 3, and we're going to continue talking about the benefits and how you utilize Loba's ultimate. Let's say you were in the open here, and you're looking for that extended cover. They're putting the ultimate down. If they already are shooting at you, and they're already putting the pressure. So let's say I had the ultimate from earlier, and we were rotating because we wanted to get better positioning. You know, ideally we didn't need to leave there, but the zone is probably going to close in this upper part of the area here. Just a guess, and let's see if we're correct, if we're wrong. Is if you're rotating and they're already shooting at you, there is no harm in having the ultimate down to grab additional resources or armor swaps. That's one thing that most Lobas don't utilize, is the armor swaps mid-fight. Because there's going to be a lot of death boxes and a lot of enemy teams that are fighting. So let's say a team fought here and they had blues and purples, as many armors as possible, and this will definitely reach at least up to like here in that area. You drop this down, you get cracked, you grab the other purple, and you continue to fight. That pressure is unmeasurable, and it's like, why are they double peeking me? Well, if you have armor, you have armor, right? But if you are safe to make this rotation, let's just pretend in the scenario I do, then we'll go right over here and we'll take positioning. Remember, as the zone does get tighter, that means that there's going to be less loot in the vicinity. Most of the loot is going to be in death boxes, but you can definitely grab the death boxes, as well as the care package loot that does come down. That's another tip as we come towards the end zone here. If you do not want to leave your positioning for A, loot boxes, or 2, and this is a pretty decent spot to move it, we can also move it a little closer out to the open area, or you can use it to block the door like we showcased earlier, if that's your bag. Remember, part of the zone that it's not looting, unless there was death boxes here, if there's loot there, you're only grabbing a bit of loot here. And just keep in mind that this is mostly the dead space that we saw, unless there's loot boxes there. You can definitely take your fair share of loot here and grab what you need, if you do need anything. If you don't need anything, then you're pretty much golden. And now we have all these batteries that we're starving out the enemy team. Just keep grabbing those big resources. Batteries take a pretty big priority. Armor swaps, if you just throw them on the ground if you're fighting in here, if you're hunkered down for an extended period of time. Those are all the big tips I can employ and make sure that you guys utilize, especially when it comes to end zone if you happen to get this far in. There's no harm because people are going to know that you're in this building anyways. You probably have already peeked, so if they know you're in here, there's no harm in them knowing that you have a Loba ult at this point. Just make sure that you're not spending all of your time in the world looting, that you're pretty quick about it. And of course, if you're only down to 2 people, well then having somebody else hold the door, aka your ultimate, is definitely going to be beneficial. So looking at the map, we actually got really lucky in terms of where this was placed. I was calling that this would be on the north side. Now the care package is dropping here, which is not the most ideal spot to grab the care package, but our ultimate is about to come up, and we're going to talk about where you could potentially place this without having to use, let's say, a Wraith port, if that option is available to you. Usually if you were to peek out right here, you would definitely get shot from every single angle underneath the sun. And if you knew a team was there, then they would start peeking and shooting at you right away. So we're going to move over. This is going to be our next spot. And I want you to take a look at when you can actually reach that area. This is probably not the best idea. This is probably the hardest spot imaginable if you were holding this area to potentially grab that. Because there's 100% without a shadow that would be a team over there. You could grab it at this point here, and you can see if it's even worth going for by what's in there. It looks like it's a Kraber, so that's 100% worth it. So if it's in range of you, it means that the ult can reach it. So let's see. Once it's in range, you're going to keep moving up, and it should pop. Oh, okay, so there it goes. So a little further. You can also see the aura. See how on the map right there? How far it is. I'm going to keep moving back, moving back, moving back. We should be able to grab it from here. I'm just going to make sure, double check. Yeah, a little too far. But if we were to place it without having a Wraith port, because even a Wraith would actually have a hard time going for this, because it would have to leave. It'd probably be this rock placement. This would be if you're really greedy for it. So if you were to drop this down, you got a team possibly there, a team over here. But if you were to drop it, you would have to be really quick on it and then grab the Kraber and run. And of course with Loba, at least you have your Q. Just don't forget, as we talk about our guys, to bunny hop, and then boom. Taking height may not be ideal, to be honest, but hey, it's an option there for you. So now we got the Kraber. Again, that's probably the hardest spot imaginable. If you were here, you can grab the Kraber with no problems whatsoever. If you're a team holding out here, you can grab the problem that Kraber with no problem. But you see that radius, and it's a pretty big, diameter, radius, using the wrong words, and I apologize for that. The whole circle, I'm recording this live and giving you guys all the inputs as the zone closes, because it's kind of hard to script whenever you have the RNG of the circle, right? So I apologize for that. So if anybody in the comment section gets mad at me, I'm sorry. I apologize. So that's my bad. So as the biggest thing that you can really highlight here is how much that the ultimate does manage to carry. And so if there's a lot of death boxes and a lot of loot in the area, then there's going to be a lot to benefit you. So we have the zone here. Let's say that there's at this point, we would assume that there would be a team here, and there would be a team that was pushing out this way. Well, if you have the Kraber already in your hands, well, that's ideal. But we had the worst possible spot of grabbing it, so the scenario that I presented is probably a bit unrealistic, but can definitely be beneficial and help you still. So, I mean, once you get your Kraber out and get your positioning, that's going to be the best thing that you can do for you. So in this scenario, we'll just wait. We'll highlight how many times we dropped it down, because we've pretty much dropped it pretty close to CD, cooldown time. Then the best thing would be to come out here and kind of drop it as like an aggro position in play. Maybe, because we need to go to the zone. If not, then just placing it inside here and grabbing whatever is in the death boxes. Let's say the person with the Kraber did actually get eliminated, and you grab the Kraber from the person who got eliminated or the red armor. So there's a lot of different options that you can play with here. In the meantime, we're going to wait. Let's say you don't want to block the door. We're too afraid to push out, but you want to drop that ult. So we got at least over about half of the circle, right? And whoever's in the zone there. So if there was loot in the area and you were trying to grab a little bit extra, you definitely have that at your disposal. So you needed just more cells. Everyone can grab their ammo. Anything they do to starve off the enemy team. Let's say they're using a bow check. Just grab whatever you can to starve them out. Even if you don't need it, right? At this point, you might as well just starve out the enemy, because it's probably the best thing you could do, and put it in your area. Unless they're running a Loba and they're just going to grab it right back, but you're assuming you're the only Loba in the vicinity. So now as the zone closes, what are you going to do? You have several options here. If there's a team over on the left, then you want to pull over here to the right side and use this rock for cover because it's about to close. And if there was a team on the right here, peeking you, then your best option, if there's no team on the north side over here, is to play this area right here because you're still in zone. In a minute, we can place our Loba ult again. Let's say if it was down to attrition and you needed just a little bit of ammo and you're running low on that Kraber shot, well, this is the best option that's going to be provided to you. So we dropped it down a lot. I know this video is very long, but I figured this would be very, very helpful just to see, especially with the zone closing. So a long video, but hopefully it's very beneficial. All right, final round. At this point, the round should end if this was pubs. If this was ranked, it would be pretty close to ending, and this is competitive. I think it would close potentially in the final round. But this is pretty out in the open, so I'll drop the Loba ult one more time, and I'll assume this is the last time we can drop it. And we'll put that counter on screen in just a minute. All right, this is the last time you most likely be able to place the Loba ult without getting absolutely peppered. So let's say you're just looking for whatever's left in the area. Let's say you're out of wingman shots, and you just need to grab that remaining wingman shots. Maybe you need a little bit more cells because you're getting peppered. Maybe you need that extra grenade to make a push, anything of that nature. Then you'd be all set up. And at this point, the zone would be closing. It's timed up perfectly for whatever else you needed left. Notice how, like, as we dropped it, it was timed up perfectly around rotations. So it was pretty nice. And then let's say at this point you would fight. And I have my little friend here in the center, Pathfinder friend. We'll give him a high five. High five, friend. Thumbs up. All right, guys, that's pretty much the whole video. I apologize this is a long video, but, you know, shout out to EA for supporting the video. I think this is very helpful. I think there's other videos we're going to do. I want to do how to bubble push and how to find positioning towards end zone. So we can talk about that as well. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.